you're live. Yeah, I think that's what he needs to do. I would have him reboot. Once it comes up, go to Chrome, reboot so his RAM will be clear. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to restart. Okay, great.
All right, so you're live. Yeah, okay, he probably has. I have that same. I got this new computer, and if I don't do that, I have the same problem. Now,
okay.
He may have a really slow stream, and if he does, then you're going to have a delay, which means that when you talk, you got to wait a second. When he talks, you got to wait a second. But we'll see here in a second. There's Matthew Patty.
Matt Patty just came in. Good. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Hey, great to have everybody here. Christof, my guest, is in Bali right now. He's logging back in because we had a couple delay issues. I guarantee for anybody that sticks around, this is going to be a very enlightening and inspiring conversation. I met this man about 5 years ago when I went to Mexico. I was living in my hometown of San Diego at the time, and I was invited to go to a plant medicine weekend down in Ensenada. And I'll tell the story when I introduce him because it was intense for me. I was detoxing off of pharmaceuticals that a doctor had put me on. I just torn the ligaments in my left ankle. I couldn't even walk. And I went through some pretty dark challenges, but I did meet Christof, and we've been friends ever since. And he's a very, very amazing guy. So just bear with us a little bit here. And for those that are watching the replay, you can just fast forward a little bit. You know, you guys know how to do it. So he'll be back in here in a second. Then we'll get started.
There he is. He's much clearer now. Okay. So I think you're good now. Okay. I think you're good now.
Let's bring him in.
Can you hear me?
I don't see him.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys.
I don't see him. We're here.
I'm wondering if there's a delay between what we're doing.
There is a delay. Can you hear us, Christof?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So both of you guys.
And you can see
me.
me.
Yes.
Okay. So let me tell you real quick. There's about a 5-second delay. Okay, and it may improve, but based on my experience, it probably won't. So just be aware of that. So you're going to kind of have to give each other a little space in between the exchange. Okay. It's a pleasure to meet you, Christof. Todd Medina, SoulogyOneStudios. Jeff, thank you for all you're doing. I'm going to check out. I'll keep an eye on everything. I think everything's cool now, though. The energy's good. All right. I see y'all.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Here we are. Great to connect with you, brother. We may have to do a little presence here if there is a delay. I'm not sure how long or short that is right now, but I'll just ask you to respond right now and see what that delay is.
Hey, thank you. I'm responding straight away, and hopefully it's all okay.
It seems good. Seems good. So I want to welcome you to the show. I want to welcome everybody here that's live. We have an amazing audience. There's going to be lots of comments and feedback. We may have time to get to that. We'll certainly try. And just thank everybody for their support and presence in this amazing group, for everybody that shares this forward, and for everybody watching the replay. I'll introduce my guest, Christof Melchizedek. I met him, it's been about 4 or 5 years ago when I was living in San Diego. I was invited to go to a plant ceremony weekend in Ensenada, Mexico. And at the time, I was detoxing or attempting to detox off some heavily addictive pharmaceuticals that I had received from a doctor. And I had also, I don't know if Christof, he'll probably remember this, I had slipped and torn the ligaments in my left ankle. So I was having a hard time walking. The place that we went to was this amazing building overlooking the ocean, 3 stories. It was heaven, 180-degree views in every direction. But it had these stairs of like 20 steps I had to go up and down every time I had to enter or exit the room. So it's a very powerful weekend, very intense for me, as I was instructed that the plant medicine, which was iboga at the time, I could go cold turkey off of the Valium that I had been taking and everything would be okay. And it turned out to be probably one of the most intense weekends. And they were nice enough to invite me back for a second weekend, which I did, and it was still really intense. But one of the beauties of that weekend was I got to meet my brother Christof here, who was not only part of the team holding great sacred space and presence, but he was involved in the journeying with us as well. So I got to experience a man that had already done a lot of work and was still moving through some of his own stuff. But the space that he held for me in the group, and when we were together out on the back patio, he did some work on my ankle that was amazing and just really held space for me those 2 weekends. So that was the beginning of our meeting and our connection. And then I've since done an online workshop with him when he was living in Ibiza, followed everything he's doing. For anybody that doesn't know about the power and the tools and the gifts that this man is sharing, I invite you at some point after this broadcast, if it resonates with you, to go to his website, because it's just filled with tools and high vibrational energy, stories about him going around the planet, doing grid work, going to the pyramids, just many, many other things. So that's my brief introduction, and I'd like to welcome you to the program. Usually we do a group meditation to kind of bring everybody's presence in. I think we can forego that, and I'll just let you roll because I know you have a lot to add and bring to the table here. So I think I'd just like to ask you, I guess, tell our listeners about your path and how you came to be where you are today, and the sort of things that you're kind of getting involved with on the planet.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I am getting some feedback on my voice.
Okay.
So if you've got some headphones or something that you can put in, I think my voice is picking up the speaker.
Okay. I do have a small speaker because my speaker in my Mac is blown. Usually turning it down works and turning it to the side. Let me see if that helps. I just turned it down significantly.
Tune it down is good. It's, I can get it now. Great. Well, okay. So first, thank you so much, dear brother Jeff. It's like it fills me with so much joy to see you up in your flowering of the great seeding that took place on the floor all those years ago with the wood, where you were at the bottom, I believe, where there was many things that were particulated in your life. You let go of a sound recording studio. Everything had been dissolved. You were really in the midst of the dark night of the soul, where your identity, everything had to get stripped back. And it fills me with so much joy to see you up and now sharing the light and the lessons that you've learned from all of that experience, and bringing beautiful people through for wonderful interviews to spread some consciousness and sprinkle some of that consciousness on those that are tuning in. So well done. It's wonderful to see you off the mat and really firing again on all cylinders. And yes, absolutely. I love to share my path, and this may resonate with many of you. We all come to our own realizations and understandings in different ways, and each of it is unique, and there are many ways to go and achieve that and receive that. My way was, I've always kind of felt I've been on my path. It's just become more refined. And like many of you, we had many challenges and internal obstacles to overcome. And the greatest victory that we achieve in our life is the victory over ourselves, to keep evolving and refining our consciousness. And I started with wanting to dive and study into the sports psychology and physical education arts at college, university. So I did a couple of degrees. And that took me on to my first journey working with the physical vessel, the body. Spent many years in the training arts, physical therapy, personal training, coaching, consulting around health and vitality. Having experienced a lot of ill health in my family with my mother's cancer, who came and went and over a couple of times, but eventually took her life when I was about 27. I saw and got to see firsthand the effect of the mainframe medical system, where very often the allopathic process, the treatment is worse than the disease, where the pharmaceutical agents, and when I started to research all of that, as many of you have probably done, you begin to get a little sickened when you find out that the very company that are creating the GM seeds, creating the pesticides and sprays and the toxicity in the food supply, which is creating sickness, are the very ones benefiting from it when they're on the other side clipping the ticket on pharmaceuticals and those types of agents. So that really made me look into the rabbit hole a little bit further, and having overcome my own traumas, I began waking up a little bit more, taking people on journeys that started with fitness, but as my years went on, evolved into nutrition, detoxing, health and vitality, well-being, mindset. And then through some direct experiences I was having, I was beginning to wake up to energy and vibration. And I remember putting my hands on someone I was doing a physical treatment with, and not having my hands directly on his back, but maybe just over the top of it slightly, just not touching. And he kicks off and went, "Oh, what are you doing to me? It feels like you're putting a needle into me." And I went, "Whoa, no, I'm not the touch." She touched her back down, and we'll try it again. And I put my hands over him again, and sure enough, he kicks off and goes, "Oh, stop putting that needle into me." And I said, "Dude, I don't know what's going on, but do you drink lots of alcohol? It just feels like your kidneys are cold." And he said, "What?" He looked up. He goes, "I'm in the hospitality industry and I get battered almost every night." So that ended up changing his trajectory of life quite a lot with that realization. But what he didn't realize is it changed mine even more because I took experience and many like it, began questioning, well, how does this work? How do I not touch someone and it has this effect? And so I began to explore quantum physics and began to understand that we're living in a unified field, and that the effect on this field can be non-local. And another little pocket that the listeners may be resonating with is I started to read some books, especially in the medical intuitive world. One of them was with a lady called Carolyn Miss, who worked with Dr. Norman Shealy. Have you read any Carolyn Miss's work, Jeff?
Yes. Very deep stuff, very insightful. Yeah.
One of the books was Anatomy of the Spirit. She's a medical intuitive, if you don't know. And if she was in LA, he's in New York, the Dr. Norman Shealy, head of the Complementary Medical Association. For 13 years, they began correlating or began working with patients. He would get difficult cases and only phone her up, just send the patient's name and date of birth, no more information, and she would diagnose. And she was 96% accurate over 13 years. And I'm reading this book, not knowing what I know now, and going, no, this is bollocks. How does that happen? And luckily I changed my sort of thought pattern there and went, well, okay, what would I need to believe for this to be true? And that allowed me to begin to inquire into other areas. And I was fortunate enough, I came across a real master's piece of work, Dr. Barbara Brennan. She wrote an amazing textbook called Hands of Light and Light Emerging. In the 80s, they were so advanced in the understanding of the consciousness template of humans. And she was an ex-NASA scientist. So she went into the physics and the science of it and everything, which really appealed to my mind, who really wants to, understand and understand things. And she laid it all together in this incredible book based upon her years of being a NASA scientist. She was a scientist at NASA as an atmospheric physicist, and then she began correlating the energy frequencies of the biofield. So I was fascinated and blown away by this, and I decided that I don't know why I need to go, but I need to go study with this woman. So I went to Austria and commuted for 4 years to Austria to study with this remarkable woman, and I learned this next piece, which was energy medicine. and I learned a whole lot of very fundamental techniques to working with the biofield. And then when I graduated that in 2012, I dived then deeply into the shamanic arts, and I went and began working, as you know, with Iboga, and I joined a healing circle with Iboga, and the Iboga began teaching me direct many healing techniques. And what I found and discovered with Iboga was it pulls a lot of the defenses away from people and allows me as a healer access to the original wound. And I can explain a little bit about how this mechanism works inside of ourselves when I finish my intro, about how we navigate the matrix. And the healings were spectacular. And at that point in time in my life, I was probably at risk for not using my Brennan healing skills. And Iboga was really the one that brought me into it, because the healing was just so incredibly profound I was performing. And, my career in the fitness industry was going very well at that point. I was traveling all the world, teaching all the major conferences, picking up big contracts with suppliers. So I really had to go cold turkey and just quit, my health and fitness career. So I just completely stopped teaching around the world and stopped working with clients to focus full time on energy medicine, on the energy healing arts and shamanic arts. And then I went into Peru, did deep dives with the Shipibos in Peru, working with ayahuasca. And, for many years I've been taking groups to do the ayahuasca work in the jungle in a private camp. And through these periods of time, both with these plant medicines on my own path, I began breaking through the density and began making contact and streaming with and communing with a group of non-physical beings in the higher dimensions, whom I lovingly refer to as the Guardians and the Guardian Alliance, of which I'm connected with. And they began teaching me a lot of advanced bioregenesis, DNA bioregenesis technologies, began briefing me on the big picture of humanity's origins, who we truly are, what our path is, what star seeds are here to do. And we're in, reasonably often contact to give me the latest big picture briefing as to what's happening in the world and what our next steps are in the sequence of this great, incredible ascension that our planet is currently going through. So I tend to hold a lot of the inner knowing of the big picture. And I guess that's what we're here to share a little bit today, the big picture of, our not only our planet's ascension, but our own liberation as we move through that trajectory. And that's been my path, as I've just, I wouldn't call myself especially talented, but especially dedicated. I became relentless in just working through the shadows and finding things I could that would give me a 1% tweak up. And then being really honest with myself and having to go through levels of transcending shadow patterns, and the plant medicines were helping that, but they're not the only way. And I've just come to really understand how everything is put together and works. So I hope that gives a little flavor to my background.
That's beautiful.
Today,
thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Before I ask you another question, go ahead. I
was just going to share that today I'm very blessed in that, I get to, interact with these beings, but I'm more following my own guidance, where we are in service in the planet. I do a lot of events around the world and experiences and different online learnings and teachings, where I teach people how to master themselves and to expand into their multidimensional consciousness. And that's where the topic will probably be today, the big picture and our multidimensional nature.
Yeah, and I'll ask you another question in a second. One thing that you hit on in the beginning of your describing your journey, which I think was a real boom statement that I want to reiterate to people here. You were reading some of the stuff in the book about Carolyn Meis, and you were like, this just seems like it can't be true. Seems like bollocks. And then you said the opening statement, which was, what would I need to believe to make this true, or to shift my perspective and create an opening here? And that's so key, because it's just all about questioning our beliefs. The whole book, Waking Up in the Dream, that I downloaded was when I met my teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz. It was about, I just realized that 99% of everything that was on my hard drive was put there by other people. And I was responding to it. And this is what we're taught to do. We associate our belief system with our identity. So when something challenges that belief system, it can trigger us because we think that goes against who we are, but it's not who we are. It can just be a faulty operating system. So that question that you brought up, what would I have to believe to be open to this, is so powerful. So thank you for that. I wanted to share that again.
You're welcome.
It was like boom. And I think people will really benefit from that. So moving on, so many people, especially in this group, are aware of the new energies that are coming to Earth. And can you share a little bit of your big picture as to what's happening?
Absolutely. This is going to be quite the stream. So I'm just going to ask everyone just to come to a place in our hearts to receive, because there's going to be energy behind my words, and it's going to come at you quite quickly. So let's make sure that we're not analyzing it with our head, but we are bringing it in through the intelligence of the heart. And that way then you can be tuned to the truth of, which is beyond the linear mind. So here we go. You're probably aware, many of you are aware, that, you know, there's new energy coming to the Earth. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to articulate it in such a way that it's going to bring all the different pieces that you've been researching, looking into and exploring, and I'm going to put everything together for you in the big picture. So you can move from puzzle, trying to figure everything out, to having it clear in one perspective, one snapshot. So I'm going to do my best to get through this in the next hour for you, but it's going to be quite the journey. So many are aware of the 26,000 year cycle, 25,920 years. Our sun spirals through the Milky Way galaxy. Behind it, our planets are spiraling behind our sun. So our sun isn't some fixed object that our planets are rotating around. Our sun is moving very fast through the universe on a grand cycle, like a grand racetrack, moving around the great central sun located in the Milky Way galaxy. The great central sun receives its frequency from the Andromeda galaxy, which bursts, comes through our grand central sun, and is condensed into a corridor band of very, very high plasma light. The plasma frequency is this frequency in the universe. Our particular universe, our time-space matrix, is one of millions of time-space matrices, but the properties of this time-space matrix are sound, vibration, light. And these things go on to create color, form, and geometry. And geometry is the form-holding template upon which physical manifestation occurs. Now, vibration. Vibration is wavelengths. And you have long and slow wavelengths, slower, and you have incredibly fast wavelengths where the consciousness is so close to source consciousness. But the wave expanded the consciousness. Our sun, since 2012, has gone into full-time this photon band of light, this narrow corridor of consciousness, which it is now inside for the next 2,000 years. And what this means is this frequency is coming down into our planet very quickly. And our planet has been designed in a very specific way and is by the founder races who designed this planet. And it's actually a jewel in our entire galaxy, because it's a portal into and out of many, many different time-space coordinates, because it has something called stargates. And stargates, which you may recognize from the TV Stargate, similar concept, these stargates are only active and open at narrow times, about a 20 to 30 year period in a stellar activation cycle. And that's what we're going in now, is a stellar activation cycle, a period of time from 2000 to around 2022, where naturally and organically our stargates are beginning to open. And it's the stargates that, when they open, begin accreting the different frequency that's coming in now through this corridor of consciousness that we are currently in, known as the photon band. Now, the reason why our planet is so interesting because that you can utilize these stargates and suddenly end up in a different time-space coordinate. You can end up in a whole new galaxy, or you can end up in a whole new part of the world. And the stargates operate as three little portals, if you like. For example, the first stargate, the stargate itself is located at Halley's South Pole. Now, if you're watching some alternative media right now, you'll be aware that there's an enormous interest in the South Pole and Antarctica right now. There's actually a lot of alien cities that are down in the South Pole. That's because they use the Stargate as a mechanism for entry and exit out of here. And it is the Q site, which is the activation site, is Cyprus, and the planetary eye of the Covenant is Air Island, Adair Air Island. And so these three portals work together, creating a sound frequency, and the Stargate pops open. And the first Stargate operates on the frequency band of the first dimension. In our particular matrix, there are three founding frequencies, dimensions 15, 14, and 13, and they hold a form-holding frequency for the physical dimensions of dimensions 1 through 12 to be active. That's why we have 12 stargates, because the mathematics of this universe is 12 dimensions. So each stargate is allowing that different frequency band. For example, the frequency band of the first dimension is red, the color spectrum red. The second dimension is orange. The third dimension will be operating yellow, and each dimension has its corresponding wavelength of the light manifests as through that, and that's how we then end up in that different dimension. So, for example, if we wanted to go to dimension, if you wanted to go to a particular dimension, for example, you might want to connect with some starseed, some star beings. You might want to connect with, you might want to go to Arcturus. Well, Arcturus is ascension. You would begin to access the seventh dimensional stargate. And that star itself is Titicaca. Phoenix, Arizona is the planetary arc of the Covenant, and Paxos, Greece is the Q site. And you can utilize that to then go straight portal in and go straight to Arcturus. Now, if you're a higher dimensional being, you have got, incredible advanced understandings of planetary ascension mechanics or the way the universe works, you have to remember that these beings who live in other star systems live for an incredibly long time. Our lifespan has been interfered with and fairly shortened by these what we call the intruder races, who've come and want to use our planet, or use Earth, as basically their own base. And so they've been attempting to come in and basically clear the slate and to utilize humanity as almost like a battery, if you like, of discordant energy. So what they've been is mind controlling various alien groups have been mind controlling their, offspring, what we call the reptilian type races who don't have a heart. Our human original DNA template is a diamond sun DNA template. We're angelic beings as our original consciousness, seated on a fifth dimensional planet that is the soul of Earth, known as Terra. And we were seated there on Terra, Earth at the fifth dimension, millions of years ago, as angelic divine beings. It's the angelic diamond sun DNA template, the 12-strand potential, and with each strand being active, accessing 12 dimensions of consciousness. And what would happen is that organically over time, our DNA would naturally, organically open, and we would begin to access that dimension of consciousness. And have come in, and of course, Terra fell to a lower dimension of Earth. And these beings have come in and actually interfered a little bit with our own DNA template, with our own consciousness, by placing various inserts and implants to keep our DNA locked. So for a long time, humanity's only been operating with 3 or 4 strands of DNA, meaning they're only accreting 3 or 4 dimensions or wavelengths of light. Therefore, in this level of consciousness, you perceive yourself to be separate from everything else all around you, and you don't feel that you have a consciousness that continues to live on as a soul. And the most important thing I think that's happened is that we've had cell death programs where we have a severely limited lifespan. So what's happened is that we end up with a limited lifespan. We end up leaving our body after 70 years, for example, and our consciousness, because of some of these energetic inserts in them, get drawn up into the astral plane. And because of these inserts, we end up stuck in the astral plane with only one way to go, down into the physical dimension again to pick up another body. To pick up another body and to pick up another body and to have the experience again. And as we are picking up more karma, it becomes more and more difficult to be leaving the physical vessel. So we end up in the samskara of lifetime after lifetime. And anytime we're in discordant energy, this energy gets fed off planet. Now, I want to make a distinction between source consciousness and the imposter consciousness.
Bear with us, folks.
Can everyone hear me okay?
What happens or can happen when somebody's bringing this type of information into the planet? Very interesting. I don't know if Todd's still out there. I'm going to ask Christof to come back in. He's probably not aware.
Can you see me or hear me? Can you see me or hear me okay? It looks like I'm got myself working okay.
Hang in there for 1 second. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Maybe I'm the only one that can't see and hear him. Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back in, I guess. I'm just sending some messages here, people. Thanks for Todd's just coming back in to see what he can do. Very interesting. We'll get this figured out real quick. Got some great people here that are sending me messages back and forth to troubleshoot this, so we'll get this figured out and resume. Some powerful stuff. Really happy to be able to bring this to all of you. Yep. High vibration, rocking the.
Okay, so you can hear me and see me again. Okay, so you're back. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep streaming. Okay, and we'll let me just set up the field so that we don't get interfered with again. So I was just talking about source consciousness as three aspects of consciousness: magenta pink, divine father; pale yellow, divine mother; turquoise, divine child. Jeff, can you turn your volume down a little bit? I'm hearing my voice back as echo.
Yeah.
These three frequencies merge together like a piece of rope, and they are simultaneously one and they're simultaneously three. So if you can imagine you braid these strings together, you simultaneously get one string unified and 3 strings that comprise the one. This is source consciousness. This is source code. This is the cosmic Christ consciousness, the tri-wave consciousness, which is the eternal life force of the Christos Sophia. And this is what's being transmitted to our planet at this time due to the trajectory of the photon band, where this energy bursts through the galactic center, the source code. Previously, can you turn the echo down a little bit more, Jeff? We're still getting the echo.
Okay.
So this source code, previously we've had an imposter spirit that's been coming into our planet. A spirit that is the consciousness which has been a bi-wave, a bi-wave frequency. And this bi-wave frequency has gone on to create a lot of, I guess, consciousness hacks where it's been, Jeff, then our feedback is worse. It's better now. Yeah, headphones is way better, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
These consciousness hacks have been bi-wave influences, and what it was a consciousness field known as Metatron separated itself out from source way back in time, and what that did is that they kind of went, oh bugger, I've separated myself from source, and now I am no longer tethered to the eternal life force. I am kind of on my own energy, and I've lost my eternal connection. So what happened is that these reversal consciousness had an advanced understanding of creational physics, and then utilized this understanding to create a bi-wave to go into other time-space matrices and begin to send these bi-wave reversals. It had a reversal mother energy, which is satanic, and a reversal father energy, which is Luciferian. And these satanic Luciferian influences created reversals which sent things into discordance and began to reverse that energy and pull it back out of the planet or out of the galaxy to sustain itself. And then that consciousness had the intermediaries of archons, and the archons were then interacting with other sort of beings in service to others to create a false light matrix. And this false light matrix ends up pulling frequencies out of beings who are in discordance. This discordance, for example, in addiction, in anger, in frustration, and anxiety, and worry, guilt, doubt. And this imposter spirit of the false parent of the bi-wave frequency has been what's been implanted in my planet. The reversal father aspect, alien aspect, works to grow the collective conscious forces of Luciferianism on Earth. The fallen mother aspect begins to express the anti-life reversals through Satanism expressed on Earth. And these kind of, secret groups or societies worshipping these energies are actually the false father and false mother gods that they are referring to. Source consciousness is the father, the mother, the child, a tri-wave. Now, when we go into expanding that original code into geometry, this is what happens. When you take a bi-wave, the bi-wave moves through an arc of consciousness at 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. And this is what began happening after Atlantis blew. Atlantis ended up blowing, as you may be aware. It blew in the last time of the Golden Age. The giant crystal pyramid that's located in the Bahamas, where it's located, where it's sending out still a discordant frequency to this day, the Bermuda Triangle. That's where a giant crystal pyramid resides. That's 3 times the size of Cheops, India. That was the crystal pyramid that blew. The Christ consciousness grids at that time blew, and the planet went into basically planetary collapse and catalysms, which ended up creating a destruction of the planetary infrastructure at that time. And that consciousness that was a Christ consciousness fell because of that pyramid blowing, where these scientists went into ego. The Intruder Races came back at that time and began repairing the grids with bi-waves rather than tri-waves to hijack the planet and utilize it as their own base. So they began putting in the bi-wave frequencies and ended up creating the geometry, which went on to create the geometry for this eon of time. And the geometry that I'm talking about, the 2 geometries I'm talking about, first up is the Fibonacci Spiral. And if you were to visualize the Fibonacci spiral, you notice that the spiral takes you further away from its center. And this is an approximation of the golden spiral because of the arcing influences of it. Now, the mathematics is numbered by the following integer: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, etc. You may be aware of that Fibonacci number. That creates the spiral. Now, the thing with this particular mathematics and the biwave is that what it does is the consciousness, the energy, consumes the number previous to it to get the next number, then goes back and consumes the next number to get the next number, goes back and consumes the next two numbers to get the next number. This is known as a consumptive model. And the reason why this is done is because that enormous consciousness field known as the Metatronic consciousness field needed to create these reversals of consumption in order to sustain its life because it's separated from source. So these mathematics, if I go through it again, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Then you go back and 1 plus 2 gives 3. Then you go back and eat 2 and 3 makes 5. You go back and consume 3 and 5 gives 8. 5 and 8 gives 13. Go back and get 8 and 13 gives 21. So you have a number, you go back, consume the next 2, and then go back and consume the next 2, and so on and so forth. And the spiral ends up getting further away from itself. And the Fibonacci spiral ends up as a model of metatronic reversals in consciousness fields. And this model ends up creating the sequence which goes on to create the seed of life and the flower of life. And the flower of life has been a geometry that has been a consumptive model, i.e. all the energy is within it, there's no connection to source, and has been utilized for this particular eon of time. The flower of life was the geometry behind the previous cycle, the previous 26,000 year cycle. And that flower of life geometry has been responsible for the patriarchal energy that our planet has been under. The time cycle before that, 26,000 years before, was the consciousness time of the matriarchy. The matriarchy was 2 cycles ago. The patriarchy was this cycle. And this brings me to what's happening now, is we are now moving out of that eon of time into a new eon of time. We have a new geometry, we have a new consciousness, and we now, instead of having the matriarchal or the patriarchy, we have both. We have the twin ray, the mergence of the masculine and the feminine together that allows the divine child to express. So we are now moving in a unified masculine and feminine consciousness working together, which hasn't happened for, eons and eons of time. We're talking about, many cycles of 26,000 years. So that's the old geometry that we've been operating under, which has been the Fibonacci spiral leading to the flower of life. Now, that brings us, I guess, in a little bit of a roundabout way, to what's happening today on our planet, because this is what the real question was at the start of all that, but I had to go back and give the frame up of where our evolution is going from. So many of you are aware of this new frequency coming into the planet. That was the history of the old. Our new frequency is source consciousness coming through as trinitized wave formats that are going in and overriding the bi-wave influences to create these tri-wave frequencies of consciousness. And this has gone on to create a new geometry, which I'll explain in a moment, which is very exciting for the time we are living in. Now, 2012, we enter into the photon band. The next marker in time, which was just soon after in 2013 in January. And many of you might be aware, if you've been on this path a while, where you were for 21st of December 2012. I was guided to be on Machu Picchu for that incredible experience, and it was a remarkable experience, as I recall, journeying with San Pedro on Machu Picchu on that date. The January saw something that no one really knew about. This was something that the founder consciousness fields put into our planet as a fail-safe mechanism. They obviously foresaw everything that was going to go on, and it was a fail-safe to ensure that if our planet was still going downwards in descent, it would be almost like the switch to flick that would bring it back up. And that's what got activated in January 13, known as the Nomi particle. And the Nomi particle got switched on, and what happened was it started a series of chain reactions which began to activate large crystal cathedral networks around the planet. And these crystal cathedral networks are not physical cathedrals, but like, etheric, giant etheric crystal cathedrals, which were at that point of time, just kind of, dormant, weren't even active. And what happened was that these giant crystal cathedrals enabled plasma to not only be accreted into the earth from the stargates, but be active inside the earth as well. So we have Oslo, Norway, that's a site which also contains 5 sub-cathedrals, Sarasota, Florida, Bali, Indonesia, Sacred Valley in Peru, and Giza, Egypt. And we've in fact done missions in 3 of those places to activate the crystal cathedral network. And we have these giant crystal cathedrals spilling out plasma, as well as the stargates, which have been systematically opening since 2000, which into the peak of which was 2017, which we'll jump to now. So this began happening. 2017 saw this time the guardians through the intermediaries of the light workers and the star seeds. Now, those of you that are resonating with this information as star seeds or indigos, I'll just quickly give you the mission briefing. When the starseed mission first began, it was in the 60s. We'd just come out of the World War, where there was atomic bombs and everything going off. And at that point, there was real concern in the Guardian councils that humanity wouldn't have the consciousness to make the jump in our ascension window. So the Guardian Alliance decided to put a call out into the multiverses to see if beings, star beings who lived in other different star systems would want to go to Earth as a mission to help Earth with her ascension and the planet. So many indigos and star seeds went into Earth, realizing that they're here to help the planet raise in vibration, but would go through a memory wipe and would forget who they truly were, but it would still be coded in their DNA, in the hope that, at the right timing, in the last few years, the star seeds would begin remembering who they are, and they would spontaneously do the right things to activate their own DNA, activate more consciousness, and get on with their mission, which is to raise the planet's vibration. And so those of you that are star seeds are probably, resonating with this because you've had your consciousness established in other dimensions. And there are earth seeds and star seeds. The earth seeds are the people who have had their consciousness established on Earth. Star seeds are people who have agreed to this plan to bring incarnating star seeds that have a higher DNA potential. Star seeds have more access to a higher DNA strandage than earth seeds. The earth seeds are of the angelic diamond sun DNA template. Star seeds have a 24, 30, 36, 42, 48 DNA template. The star seeds are either coded to be working in healing or coded to be working on activation of the earth grids. So you'll be drawn to either the healing arts or the activating of the earth and the that type of thing. So star seeds began incarnating since the 60s, where the first wave came. Second wave came in the 70s and 80s, and the third wave came in the 90s. And they began waking up to their mission of doing enormous amounts of planetary grid work. And this planetary grid work, the Guardians have been working alongside, being able to get back control of the stargates. So now all 12 stargates are open, and we have the Crystal Cathedral network on the planet spewing up plasma. Now, in 2017, a major event happened called the particle convergence. If you've ever seen the movie Thor in the Dark World, they talk about the 9 worlds aligning up, and that's essentially what happened in the particle convergence, except all 12 dimensions lined up into a 3-day window. And this particle emergence happened on the August 21st, 2017. And this was a period of time in which all timelines were up for grabs to steer Earth into a major energetic portal of 0 point. Now, of course, the various agendas playing out on the Earth all knew about this and were trying to utilize this window to bring through their timeline of their agenda. Thankfully, the Guardians and the other light working groupings were working diligently behind the scenes to ensure that this window of time enabled source consciousness and a new geometric code to be installed. And I was guided along with a couple of the people who I'm involved working with. We're guided to take a group to Egypt. We took a group twice to Egypt, to the Great Pyramid of Egypt. We did a big tour through the sacred sites of Egypt. And on the August 21st, we had a private, we hired the whole pyramid, and we were there privately for a couple of hours right during the particle convergence, where this whole reset of source field came through, and we began directing that frequency, and a new geometric code directly connecting to source, unlike the flower of life, which held all its energy inside of it. This new geometry called the crystal spiral draws its energy from the eternal light source, the creator. And this was installed into the planetary architecture. The first three chakras of the planet collapsed, and a whole lot of earth-based karma was dissolved, meaning we now live in a non-causal reality. So the collective events of war on the past, on the land, is no longer affecting our future. We still have to navigate our personal and ancestral karma, but the dissolving of the karma of the collective through the war has been a major acceleration code for us to move through with all of that. So the crystal spiral as a arcing geometry is very different to the flower of life. The mathematical sequence behind the crystal spiral goes, the first thing is 0. It holds 0, and then it goes through a doubling of each numerical value. 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, etc., doubling each value. And what happened was that the consciousness on the particle convergence December 21 shifted from arcing through 60 degrees to experience a different arc of 45 degrees. Now, this arc of 45 degrees had big ramifications, both in the geometry that got formulated out of the new arcing system. Let's go through the maths. 0 and 1, back to 0, 0, 1, 1, back to 0, 1, 1, 2, back to 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, back to 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, back to 0. You see the pattern. You go back to source, like an in-breath, and add up all the next numbers to get the next number. 1 plus 1 plus 2 equals 4, back to 0. 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 4 gives 8, back to 0. Contrasting that with the Fibonacci spiral, which was underpinning the flower of life, was meaning that it was 1 and 1, and then it would consume the number previous to it. We would go 1 plus 1 is 2, then back to 1 plus 2 is 3, then back to 2 plus 3 is 5. It's a consumption model. This is this new geometry, the new frequency, the new mathematics is a direct connection with source. We're breathing in and out now with source, which is affecting and changing everything. And this frequency then is birthing and bringing this through. Now, if you go back to 2017, August, you'll recall soon after the August 21st eclipse, there was a lot of very hectic hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes that went off for about a 6-week period. It was like floods everywhere. What was happening was the Earth was having to adjust her frequency off the new arcing rhythm. Remember, it went through a 15-degree arc difference from 60-degree arc to 45-degree arc, and then the new geometry. So everything had to reconfigure itself based around that, and that's why we had all those hectic weather events that were happening at the time. Now, what's happening now is that the 21st of August, we go to the 21st of December, which was the particle emergence, where the new timelines and temporal markers all got sent off into the universe. We went back to the pyramids and went again to the pyramids and went through that portal again, and we anchored that timeline into our planet. So our planet is now on an ascending consciousness. And what we're seeing now is the birth of the new species. Every indigenous culture in the world has talked about the Homo luminous, the sacred wisdom keepers. The Homo luminous is the next root race of humanity. And that morphogenetic field is beginning to build. And this building of the morphogenetic field is being built out in the earth grids. And what's been happening is that these tri-wave frequencies have been sent into the earths, and the Metatronic reversals, which are the bi-waves, are being overridden by the tri-waves. And so a big part of this rescue mission of the light workers of Starseeds has been to lift the Metatronic reversals and bywave influences which have encased much of the Earth grids. This has created the anti-life broadcast, and this has created the war, the petulance, all the different crazy stuff that's happening in the world that's discorded away from source, which is unconditional love. And so the Guardians and various on-the-ground groupings of light workers have been overlaying the Metatronic reversals, lifting this from the Earth architecture, and began putting in the Trinity wave code through the Earth grids, because the Earth grids are the broadcasting frequency upon which humanity draws its consciousness from. Now, this brings us to our present time vector, and what we're working towards now is the 1111 portal. And the 1111 portal is going to be a powerful portal where we're guided the next piece, which the most densest place on the planet. Let's just take our imagination there for a moment. Where do you think the densest, heaviest part of the planet is? Well, it's Middle East, because the Middle East holds still very strongly the imposter spirit, the bywave, where there's no feminine influence. And there we see a massive suppression of the feminine. The divine feminine does not get that opportunity to express itself. And the central hub of all of this is called the Grail Point. And the Grail Point is Jerusalem, Temple Mount, or Temple of Solomon. There we hold the three founding patriarchal religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all of which are aligned with a false father god belief system, which doesn't encompass and allow a feminine to express itself. And so these satanic reversed mothers, held in place by Orion alien groupings, hold the anti-female collective consciousness frequency, which gets sent down to 3D, and the satanic energy keeps in place this religious war, killing in God's name, genocide, blood sacrifice, all that type of thing. While the Luciferian reversed father energy, including the interdimensional false alien gods of the Anunnaki, Thoth, Yahweh, Jehovah, all of this, use this energy to create the world religions on Earth. That's the patriarchal domination, and that's a suppression tool to keep consciousness as a bywave frequency. So we are now guided to go to the Middle East to look to bring back the feminine energy, to return the tri-wave frequency to the Middle East through the alignment of the 1111 portal. So some of you listening may be in resonance with that and want to join our mission. You can go to my personal website, christofonline.com, and check that out under experiences, where we're gathering a grouping of light workers to go to the Middle East and perform the ritual and the frequency needed to override this, this very deeply held patriarchal domination, to allow the divine feminine to rise. And what we've been shown is that when we can lift that, what's going to happen is that the return of the cosmic king will be broadcast through King David, King Solomon, and those genetic bloodlines that have that coding linked to that lineage will be able to override all of this distortion, lift the frequency to allow the divine feminine to rise. And then at that point, we're going to see the morphogenetic field that's been building of the new root race will open, and the first new souls will be able to come into Earth of the new root race. And we're tracking 1 billion new souls will enter the Earth grids, ready for the right parents who are coupling in the twin ray consciousness. Those beloveds that are drawn together and are able to merge their consciousness at the monadic consciousness level. What I'm talking about here is merging the consciousness at the monadic level, dimensions 7, 8, and 9, and have one consciousness streaming through two vessels. So twin flame are two individual consciousness from the same ray. The twin ray consciousness is one consciousness streaming through two vessels, and those beings will, through the tantric practices and alchemy, be able to bring through the divine child and the next evolutionary root race. And that is kind of the big picture plan for these new race souls to come to the Earth. And when these billion new race souls, the Homo luminous or the Homo divinus, they'll begin to then create the massive changes that are kind of happening on the planet. And our role as the star seeds is to ensure that the Earth architecture, the grids, and our own consciousness is aligned enough to allow this new root race to enter. And as that starts doing, they will, our own consciousness begins to elevate, and we start to see our Earth on a whole nother big trajectory. Within all of that, our own pathway is to activate our DNA, begin to expand our consciousness so that we are more aligning with divine will. We balance out our feminine and masculine aspects into Heros Gamos, where we are balanced between masculine and feminine, fully activated in our DNA, work through our karma, keep raising our consciousness, and be of selfless service to those on the planet following our guidance. And we are moving our planet into that trajectory. So that's been quite a data dump and transmission. So I'll allow myself to take a breath, drink some of my nice Balinese coconut, and Jeff, allow you to ask any questions, or any of the guests to ask any questions.
Thank you for a great share. We've got a great crowd here. I see 46 people on my end, if this is correct. Question-wise, it's a little difficult to move through all this stuff, but the download is there.
Why don't you use yourself as a question hub, and what's the immediate questions that you are guided to ask?
Okay, so the immediate question is, I'm getting that everybody that's tuning into this and listening is resonating with the message, whether they've heard it before. I think probably everybody in this group has heard bits and pieces of all of this, but what you just shared with your research and your wealth of knowledge and tied it all together has created, for myself and probably for everybody else, because they're still staying on here, a big yes point. Like, yes, we have made it. It is happening. And so the next step is, what can we all do to work together in these tribes, go on these journeys with yourself, come together in these groups that we do, raising consciousness, mirroring each other, asking the deeper questions, accepting full responsibility and ownership for anything that we're still working through and clearing. And so I guess the question would be, the number one things we can do from this point, and many of us are already guided to do it, but if you have any reflection on that, that would be powerful. I know it's kind of a broad question, but
well, there's two levels to this. What we're here to do as a soul is to grow spiritually. That's why we came to Earth, to experience the living library of the 3D. When you have moved past there's two elements we're here to work through. One is egoic deficiencies. These are the things that are playing out in our lower three energy centers: fear of survival, fear of relationships and belonging, fear of our personal power, identity. These get conditioned in a way growing up where they are distorted, and we have to overcome these egoic deficiencies. And then when you do that, you begin to become more stable. That's the first thing that you notice. You get into stability. Those of you that have gone on into the 3D world, into the matrix, you end up working in life, and you're going get ahead, and you achieve a deal of success, perhaps even financial success and positioning success in your industry. But you get to a certain point, no matter how high you get, and it doesn't fulfill you. You recognize that, wow, I've got all this money, and then the money is not really important anyway, or all these other things. And you realize that actually you're looking for more meaning. And that's when we start to go in the direction of meeting our soul needs. Now, the reason why light workers bypass, the egoic needs of money often, they're not, light workers don't really care so much about money. They care more about, serving and being spiritually connected. But the challenge is that they can't fully live out their full mission, because they still haven't overcome the foundations of the lower three energy centers of the egoic deficiencies. So the first thing that we can do is recognize in ourselves our own triggers, where we get triggered, and use that as a way of reverse engineering to the thought, the feeling, the belief which is behind that, and the wounding that the belief is protecting, and to go in and clear the wounds. Because what's called for now, as you do clearings on yourself, you're clearing for the collective. And as you do that, you can raise your vibration. And the only way to enhance your life quality the only permanent way is to raise your vibration and expand your consciousness. And as you do that, you're operating at a different frequency set point, and you start attracting towards you new timelines, new realities, new potentials, new people who are in support and resonance with the frequency. If you're vibrating lower, you attract people at that vibration, which is why when you go on your spiritual journey of evolution, quite often your old friend network just drops away and you end up collecting new friends at a new frequency set point. So in order to support and help with this, it's very simple. Raise your vibration. And then by naturally living life in alignment with your purpose, what you feel guided towards, you will automatically be an inspiration for others. And what is inspiration? In spirit. That's the root word, in spirit. When you're in spirit and you're living out spiritually, you begin to live a life of alignment that automatically resonates with others. Therefore, you don't have to try hard in life because you're in the flow of it. And you end up flowing through life easily and organically, effortlessly with grace, because you are linked up with your gold print, what I call your blueprint. Your spiritual gold print is the incarnating purpose for which you came. And you connect with that and you start aligning your life to that spiritual purpose. It's like your higher self is laying the pieces of the path down in front of you, step by step, piece by piece, and you follow the guidance. And it means you end up in exactly the sweet spot, the right place and time to receive the next piece of the puzzle of the unlocking of your own life path, which begins to happen. And you listen to the calling in your high heart and live with love, because love is the rhythm of the universe. The whole matrix is imbued with love. And if you are operating with love, you're in the flow of it. And in that flow, you can open up to synchronicity. And the synchronicity is synchronizing lines coming together. We call it coincidence. Well, coincidence in mathematics is perfection, coinciding lines, right? Coincidence. They come together with perfection because you're operating with love on purpose, and life begins unlocking at greater and greater levels. And that's the best advice I can give of moving yourself, of moving anyone forward, or yourself forward in particular, for those of you that are listening at home, is to live in that alignment. Whenever you get irritated, upset, frustrated, angry, recognize that these are not about the other person. They're all about you, the woundings that you have, the protection that you have about those woundings, the belief systems you've created to protect those woundings, the wall, self, lower mask reactions, all designed to protect that your irritation is showing you. It's not about them, it's about you. And going inside and dealing with that and bringing that frequency up to raise your vibration and bringing that gift of the sharing of the transcendent state of that. So you can automatically heal others just by being in your loving presence.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. So let's just see. I've got a couple of questions here. Linda's asking, I would like to hear more about earth seeds. Earth seeds are beings who had their consciousness established on earth. They are here with a very specific role to play of anchoring down the energies on their particular, where their genetics are coded to. So quite often you'll feel in particular resonance with different parts of the world. It's because there's energy encoding there for you. And earth seeds are here to have a soul experience of growth in the living library of life in the third dimension. It's from Irina. It's difficult to live in the 3D. What is the suggestion? Well, you see, spiritual growth is not about taking our spirit and going up to avoid life in the 3D. It's about going up and bringing all of that we are up here down in here to live life physically in the moment. And so if you're struggling to live in the 3D, grounding is the biggest thing I can give you. Focus on grounding, focus on hara, and do some exercise. Exercise is very grounding, and you need to be able to interface. And what I find with a lot of light workers is that they can go up and can get the information, but they can't anchor it. So it's almost like they're sailing up there with a hot air balloon. But what the guardians and other beings needed who are supporting Earth's ascension, they need that information and light anchored into the earth. So you have to connect your consciousness into the earth. And light workers are very sensitive beings. So if you grew up in a household of conflict and arguing, very often your consciousness decides to stay up in the spirit world a little bit more because it didn't feel safe enough to come down. And so you have to overcome these childhood traumas of safety and survival and work through the issues of the first chakra so you can feel safe, grounded here on earth. And when you do, then things begin to get accelerated because it's hard to manifest unless you're really connected to the earth mother energy. So you need to be able to do both. So grounding, exercise, being in hara. see. Someone's just saying, Dale's just sharing, indeed a big dump. That took 40 years of learning, visions and bits and pieces and tied it into one story. That was exactly my objective, Dale. So I'm glad you felt that as well. Everyone seems to be getting a quick karma, forced to purge into a more authentic self, Angela. Yeah, the thing with karma is that this time-space matrix is operated and imbued with operating parameters to make the perfected matrix. The operating parameters are unconditional love, cooperation, law of one. There are a bunch of others, but cause and effect is one. So as a soul, we are here to learn lessons, and we can choose and have conscious free will choice to live in alignment with those operating parameters. And the Creator gave humans free will choice. So if we choose, we can choose to live out of alignment of those operating parameters. But when we do, there's going to be an effect equal and opposite to the cause of whenever we operate outside of the alignment. So we can choose to live in anger and resentment instead of unconditional love. We can choose to live selfishly instead of selflessly with outside of the law of one. But when we do, it creates a karmic consequence which has to find a return path. And that return path has to come back to us so our soul can embody and learn the lesson, where we get to experience the equal and opposite frequency of the break in the law. So when that happens, we end up with these karmic imprints which act as twisted patterns around our nadis, and these twisted patterns which sit around our nadi bands are there operating at that frequency, creating attractor fields to the equal and opposite reaction to what the cause was. And we will keep attracting that towards us until we learn the lesson. The interesting thing is that we don't have to do it for our past lifetimes. We also have to do it for our ancestors' past lifetimes and our ancestors, what they've done in this lifetime, and soul contracts. The reason why it's coming around more quickly now is the frequency is faster in the photon band, so things are materializing much, much quicker around us, including karmas coming back to us, which is actually what we want. We want to learn, we want to dissolve our karma, because then we can become liberated. And when we become liberated, we don't have to come back into the matrix at all. So, okay. Brenda, you've explained this so well and simplified it so even I could understand it. Thank you. Awesome, Brenda. Well, if you want to get some more of these types of insights, I do quite a bit of writing. I send out as emails. Just go to my website, christofonline.com, and you can receive directly to your inbox a lot of these consciousness seeds, which I call them, which should give you updates of what's happening on the earth and keeps us in the loop. I think there's a free opt-in on my homepage, which gives you some free training. You can get that free training and you'll be accessed to my mail outs if you want to get some more. Can I ask, is it a no-no to call and work with each archangel? What we suggest, and what I suggest, Daniel, is to work more with your own higher self than other energies, because you can never be sure of the intention of the angelic realm, or any realm, of course, for that matter. Some angelics are fallen, such as the Metatronic angelic realm is a fallen consciousness. The Michael angelic is a fallen consciousness. Many light workers falsely believe that Michael is a protector. But what it's actually doing is, through the sword of Michael, it actually creates a little reversal, and it actually ends up creating a little distortion by holding in place the false father kind of God, the false father frequency. What it is the family of Michael as a fallen consciousness, and it holds in place the patriarchal energy. And so what we suggest is you work more with your own consciousness and that of Source and that of God, and that will serve you much better than working with any other external energies. Irina is saying twin flames trigger the best. That's right, Irina. Our twin flame or our twin ray, even if you go up a level, are here to hold the exact mirror. They're exactly like us. And so quite often these can be, challenging relationships, because they trigger you the most and push your buttons the most, which therefore elevate your consciousness the most, if you can see it as a gift of overcoming it and not project blame at the other person. My wife, Alea, is my twin ray. And at the beginning, it's kind of like we're going like this. At the start, we come together like this. But as over time, we're getting closer and closer and closer together in terms of, you know, being more resolved in terms of our own emotional triggers. But we had to go from there, where we're at each other a little bit at the beginning, to coming closer and closer together. So we can really go much faster with our twin ray, but it's not necessarily easier. Dale, remember Carol and Miss and Edgar Casey both spoke of clearing the lower 3 chakras as important to become elevated to the higher the 4th. Yes, Dale, 100%. Until you have, you know, this is the first initiation that we go on our spiritual path, is clearing our mental and emotional bodies. That means clearing, you know, our second and third chakras, and our first chakra for safety, survival. Until you overcome those, you can't actually hold the big consciousness field of your higher self embodied into your physical form, because those chakras and energy centers are unstable. In fact, what ends up happening when they all become very super clear, we're going to start to see shortly, we're going to activate the star chakra, where all the other chakras collapse, and we just end up accessing one consciousness field of love that we navigate everything through and create energy through. Let me just scan through, see if there's any other questions. Love is the key to all. Absolutely, Stephanie. Can you tell us some more about twin flames? Yeah, twin ray is the highest expression, which is the unified masculine and consciousness field. Then from the twin ray, it splits down into 7 twin flames, and the 7 twin flames are correlated to the 7 chakras. So depending upon which chakra you're mostly operating through will be depending upon the expression of that twin flame that will show up in your life if you have a twin flame relationship. So, you know, obviously they're there to learn lessons like us all. All our relationships are designed to teach us to accelerate and grow. And what's happening now is we are accessing and experiencing the emergence of the twin ray, and that is starting to come to the planet. Okay, let me scan. I think hopefully that's a lot of the questions that are asking. Can I put a link up? Stephanie, what link would you like, sweetie? I'm not sure which link you're after.
Yeah, in the comments, you can put a link to your website.
Oh, yeah, how do I? Can you do I don't know how to do that. ChristofOnline.com. I don't know how to enter a comment.
We'll just pop it into the comments down there.
Yeah, CHRISTOF online.com. And on my homepage, I've got like a little opt-in, which gives you some free resources. Just opt into that and you'll be getting I think there's about 4 or 5 free video trainings, a free energy clearing, and then most importantly, you're on the newsletter to get this type of stuff. Stephanie, I haven't found my twin flame yet. Well, Stephanie, it's coming. You have to keep working on yourself. Let go of neediness, let go of a lot of things, and just keep working on yourself. It will show up. Keep raising your vibration.
One of the questions that I really liked, I don't know whether it was Daniel or he talked about, should I connect with, you know, Metatron or Archangel Michael? And I see a lot of this going on every day, where people are, I won't say they're giving away their power, but I certainly have always had that question since the information has been downloaded to me, to be very careful about that. And so I think we could do a whole show on that just alone, because you see the messages are coming in from the Arcturians and the Palladians and the Archangels, and people truly are in a lot of ways seeking to give their power away to that. Yeah.
What we encourage, we could do a whole thing on this one. What we encourage is what's called data streaming versus channeling. Channeling is when you allow another consciousness to enter your system to talk through you and give you the messages. Data streaming is when you connect with your own God source consciousness. You're channeling from your higher self, from God, through to you direct, with no intermediaries. So it's yourself, because we're living in a unified field. So it's a little different, but it does ensure that you've got the best intentions. And absolutely, as soon as you start calling upon saviors, which is what many light workers are calling upon, like Archangel Michael, immediately puts you into victim. So angelic human beings, there's no more being more powerful in the universe than an angelic human being. That's what you need to know. That any other demon or discarnate or entity or anything can't even stand. We are so bright. Our light is so magnificent. We are literally God-realized beings or God beings in this tiny little physical form that when we fully activate, our field is so enormous, beings just go, whoa, what is that? And they run the other way. But if you're like kind of a little bit scared and want to call it another savior, well, your light diminishes. And so then, you end up reliant on these other external energies. So it's a really good point that you bring up.
I think that's super important for people to really take that in and question anything outside yourself that you may be giving your power away to. I'm not saying anything external information is bad. I'm just saying own your own brilliance and magnificence. And I think the question that would come up for people when you brilliantly describe that is, how do I know the difference between if I'm data streaming or if I'm, I guess the answer would be, don't be asking another entity or person or name outside yourself to give you what you already know and have within your own divine DNA blueprint.
Exactly it. You want to operate from knowing, inner knowing, rather than understanding. When you understand, you are under someone else's perceptions, which is why the reason I gave you the stream like this is not for you to understand me, but for people to filter it through their own sense of perceptions and reality, and to then take a hold of the information and work with it yourself, and to see how it all fits together. Does Canada hold less planetary karma as it has not had war on the land? Yeah, any land that doesn't have had war on it would have less karma previously. But as I mentioned in the sharing I gave, we have had a major cleansing of planetary karma on the land. So there is a lot less, there's not much karma around on the land, and we can reset ourselves. How do we remember? Have been seeing sheet lightning in my sleeping time in my eyes, with my eyes closed, and had a spiral experience in 2008, very uplifting. I'm not sure what the question is. How do we remember? Yeah, well, that's by doing these types of things, listening to these messages, seeking, searching, traveling will help you to re-remember. It's not remembering; it's re-remembering. It's knowledge that you already have holding into yourself. Angela's asking, how do I meet a twin flame? Well, you just have to follow your flow of love and life, where you love to be, what you love doing, because your twin flame has those same loves and passions as you. So it's not like you have to search for your twin flame. It's not about that. It's about going about your life, living yourself passionately in love with yourself, doing the things you like to be doing, and focusing on that. And then they will turn up, because they're going to be resonating in the same way and drawn to the same activities you like to do as well. Luciferian satanic groups going to go away and dissolve? I've been asked lots about these things. Well, the frequency is not going to sustain them. They are going to leave. At the moment, they're kind of a little bit desperate. We're getting towards the end game now, where a lot of the systems are up for grabs, are collapsing, they're dissolving. The frequency of the broadcast now, with the new geometry of source consciousness, is no longer going to be supporting the parasitic systems of money, politics, finance. All of that stuff is all going to change over time. And bearing in mind, it's only going to take probably less than one generation, which is a blink of an eye in the big scheme of things, after thousands of generations of this type of patriarchal energy. So where am I from? I'm not sure if you mean what country am I from, or what star system I'm from. I've had experiences in all different star systems. I've come down from source, and my consciousness has gone through all the 12 dimensions, living in different star systems. And this particular incarnation, I was born in New Zealand. So that's where I was. Okay, beloveds, I think I'm just trying to scroll through, and I think we've got through quite a lot of questions here from everyone. So I hope this has been useful for you all. And I just want to bless your guys' path and say namaste, and thank you, Jeff, for having me. Is there anything else you want to share or comment on?
Just thank you so much for showing up the way that you always do. It's been a blessing. I know that many people are going to see this in the replay, and there's so much valuable information here. So I'll make sure that your link is in the comments. I encourage everyone to reach out, go to his website, get on his mailing list. He's got a wealth of information and opportunities for people to understand on a deeper level. Again, my experience with him has always been one of just full integrity. He embodies the masculine and feminine side as well as anybody I've ever met, and it's just an honor to be on this journey. So I thank you for that. And for those that want to go deeper, you can either, investigate his work. I also have a 6-week group starting on this Sunday called Waking Up in the Dream, Dissolving the Matrix, where we're going to take a group of people through 6 weeks of going into the things that we talked about, such as questioning every belief, every judgment, blaming the external, just 100% ownership, and really getting clarity on that foundation so we can move forward into these higher dimensions and understand this stuff on a deeper level and clear out some of this stuff that has been programmed through our parents' school, the religion system, the school system, the media. And so I invite anybody that's interested to go to my page or check out Colin Joe Byrne, who's going to be co-creating these journeys with us, because he's another person that's really delivering some high vibrational download and information. So, and I want to give a big shout out to everybody here in the Soulogy Network, Todd Medina, Morgan Lee. I see right now on my screen 44 viewers and 111 reactions with 307 comments. So it's great to see the numbers and the participation in here. And definitely would love to have you back at any time, brother. And
yeah, absolutely. Just reach out when you feel guided. We can maybe we can do one after the November mission in Israel. We can give a little update of what's going on now. Yeah,
that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. So
thank you for all the light you're shining and the sharings around the world and the beautiful thing that you're doing. So happy to hear your happiness in Thailand, Chiang Mai, and yeah, may long it continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll connect soon.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.